Hi, this is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I'm going to be discussing just because Egypt and Samaria etched things in stone doesn't make it so. And yet there are, or I should say, there is real indication that we have been visited by aliens and alien spacecraft, which is cross-cultural, and indicators of this have been in existence for millennia. So what I'm really looking at as the ambassador of heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over life is to begin the discussion of tease out what is a political propaganda on the part of a people that is Samaria, 5,000 years ago, because the things that they etched in stone and put out there, we cannot verify in other parts of the world. We can't verify it through the digs. We cannot verify what they're saying. We cannot verify what their kings' lives are about. And because of this lack of verification, and because we know that they had taken over certain areas from, let's say, the Hurrians and the other Anatolians, that does not mean that just because they said it, it's so. We have a lot of people involved in history today because of archaeology, and they're trying to justify everything that the last 5,000 years has been telling us, because about 5,000 years ago, the great age of patriarchy began putting their rubber stamp all over the place, and therefore it's got to be true. But we're not finding the additional archaeology to back it up. We're not finding it in North America. But what we are finding is a cross-cultural, international indication of ongoing alien monitoring. Not aliens that are coming here to have us mine their gold, okay, which is what they're telling us over in Mesopotamia and some other places in that region. They're not saying that. But that there is a real encounter between humanity and these star brothers, or the watchers. For the most part, it's benign. Sometimes it's on the experimental, and sometimes it's malevolent. But for the most part, it's benign. And the spaceship encounters are pretty much prevalent. The other thing I would challenge a lot of people's opinion is that when we look at the ancient Egyptian gods, we really don't think they encountered a god that had a jackal head and a human body, or that they had a god that had a penis that went out to here, Mim, and had a flail himself. It's too much with one leg, and it's just too much. Okay, and do we really think that Isis had her husband who was torn up in bits and pieces, her husband's brother who was torn up in bits and pieces, and she then put him back together with spells and brought him back to life, but he didn't have a penis, so she made one for him, make pretend one, so that she could impregnate herself? I mean, these are really, really gruesome, terrible stories. All right, so why would we have cults of people that would even consider these stories? I mean, these are acts of legitimacy, or they had people who were on drugs, or a lot of people were doing drugs. I have no idea. But do we really think that this is what their gods were like? No. Yet they had near-death experiences. They had near-death experiences of hell. They had near-death experiences of fire. They had near-death experiences of paradise, where they came back. I don't mean the kind where they go up there and they sleep with all kinds of women. No. But they do have, as Jesus said, of a paradise, of another kind of world, another kind of reality. They have that whole gambit, the same way we today have these experiences. So I think it's important to look at the commonality. The ancients have experiences of discs, flying discs, and they have these engraved on rocks. They have, and so do we. So there is a commonality. I'd like to come out of me and just take a look at some of the artwork. I'd like to go see the Magdalena people, France and Spain. How do I get out of me? Let's come out of me. Oh, here we go. I just would like to point out, here is Göbekli Tepe. I always get this wrong. All right, so if we take a look at some of their artwork, they show artwork of animals. Those are the watchers, and for the different lives that go up when you go up to heaven. Here is, of course, we have the vulture. This is much older than the vulture that is in Egypt, but again, this vulture is bringing the soul up. And this is like the harvest. Really interesting. But notice they're animals. We have the snakes, and the snakes coming down, and the snakes keeping the other animals from coming up. We have a picture here. Look at how the hands coming across, and they have to wear the skins in front to cover themselves up. There are no spaceships here. There are no strange people. There's no strange beings. There's no strange gods. Pretty realistic. Let's come over here. Oh, I think this is beautiful. I mean, this is 17,000 BC around this area. It's in that area. Oh, I hope they're telling us the truth, the academics. I mean, look at the artwork. Look at the realism. Hunting. It's gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Okay? Here it's like a cartoon and they're making things up. This is so funny. I mean, sometimes I think these are academics who made things up and they want us to believe in this. I do. But so, this is gorgeous. But there are no strange spacecraft, no strange space people. There's nothing. It's very realistic. The Native Americans, when you can go back, 10,000 years, and they find flints and all kinds of things. There's nothing strange or uncanny going on. So there's every reason to believe that there's a delusion of grandeur propaganda campaign that goes on with these kings in order to legitimize their rulership. And just as I've said, the Hebrews, Rome, Greece, took those things that were Hattian and Hurrian, brought them into themselves, took the meaning and turned them upside down, and utilized them in ways that, all right. But there's no reason to think the Sumerians or the Egyptians or the others didn't do this as well. And there is an ongoing discussion of the same little people that are aliens and certain other types of people, but there's no flying dragons. Look, the Magdala, if there were flying dragons, don't you think these people would have drawn them? Even the Egyptians, the most ancient Egyptians, didn't do anything with flying dragons. All of the dragon stuff is pretty recent, like under 1000 BC. You look at this, and it's just not, the dragons, they're just not there. The dragons were really about Draco. And for these people that were in the Russian steppes and for the people further north, but especially the Russian steppes, they identified Draco because that was around the northern pole. And so at nighttime, they could use it after they went down and went further south and was engaged in raping, pillaging, and plundering. Their home was up by Draco, so they would know at nighttime how to look, where they were going, where Draco was. Yeah, I think it was the North Pole. Wasn't that it? And I think they're thinking that it's going to turn back into the Northern Star again. So these people, a lot of them, I'm not kidding. They tell you, the historians tell you, they were drunk. The Scythians did drugs like nobody's business. A lot of marijuana. That very violent. Oh my God, I've already discussed that. So when they would look up in the sky, they would say, "Oh, you know." they're either really drunk or they're really drunk and really high, and they would say all kinds of things, you know but that was their serpent. And they weren't good people. I mean, I don't, I don't even consider them human. I've already said that. Oh, I wanted to share this with you. I just happened to be that race, the red-headed little blonde race. I've told everybody I'm 62. Well, it's pretty grainy. This is my aunt who's still with us, but there's a picture of me. Definitely very white kid with red hair, So yes, I complain about my own race, but that doesn't mean everybody else is perfect. But I'm, you know. So let's come over here. So no, I mean, this is actually the Adam and Eve story, that you have to wear skins and you have to cover up your goodies. They're telling you to cover up your goodies. I mean, this is beautiful. This is not like those crazy naked depictions of the Greeks. These people had so much more class than the Greeks. It's not funny. Alrighty, here we go. And so the artwork here is, I can't believe it's 17,000 BC, and there's artwork, cave artwork in Africa that is fantastic. And they don't have any dragons or any really strange people. There's nothing really strange going on. It's no, you know, really. Okay, so let's take a look at the Egyptian gods. Now, by the time, I mean, this is true. They really do have these really strange gods. I mean, right. The reason why she is so important, and we find it in Göbekli Tepe as well, is because the vultures did not kill to eat. So there was something pretty holy about that. And they pretty much got along with human beings. These vultures got along very well with human beings. They lived in the same area. And they really did bring animals and the souls up. So even though they knew that that was not God, they understood that there was an attribute about God that came and brought the soul up. That part they knew was happening. And it was monogamous, very family-centered, always looked after their children. I mean, like, this is like a super duper bird. And so, yeah. But look, here we have, Gib and Newt, these things. That's pretty normal. She's pretty normal looking. That's not normal looking. I mean, this is not normal. So we have some things that are just not normal. But no. All right. So there are no monitors. There are no half horse, half men. There are no half snake, half people. I mean, if these things were going on, some of the other people would, in other cultures, would be seeing this as well. And they're not. Now, UFOs. There are lots of ancient depictions of UFOs. Now, we could ask ourselves, are these prophecies in which they're looking at us, or are they looking at the prophecies of the UFOs? And I think they could be looking at the UFOs. They're in China, they're all over. I love it. Astronauts in Guatemala. Now I have to say to myself, what if they had prophets and they were seeing us? The Bible, Daniel, Revelations, Micah, talks about our time and what we're doing and how terrible and devious, and they go right into detail and they're specific. So why couldn't the Guatemalans in some of these cultures with their spacemen in spacesuits, why can't they be looking at us? Why can't that be their prophecy? And the Guatemalans had a whole system that they did some really wacky things as well. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't, but there's no reason to think that they don't have legitimate prophets as well. And there aren't legitimate sightings. But what they don't have is this fantastical lizard people that this culture, our particular culture right now, and of course we have a lot of people that are back, have this thing about the reptilian people and the reptiles and the dragons. And I'm gonna tell you, it's coming from that fantastical group, my group, these crazy people that do drugs from the steppes of Russia that came down, and the Celts. It's really emanating from them. Remember, we're back, and it seems like you brought all that craziness with you. You're back, and you haven't forgotten not to let it go. You've brought it back. And so now it's time to take a good look at it and say, whatever the Scythians that are back, or the Celts that are back, or the Thracians that are back, whose mothers, like Alexander the Great's mother, slept with snakes. I mean, his father slept with all kinds of different women. She couldn't sleep with all kinds of different men because they had to be monogamous once they were married. So she slept with snakes. I mean, it's not normal. Even the people, the Magdala people that are 17,000 years, BC in France make more sense than the Greeks most of the time. So it's hard to tell. Maybe that's an overstatement. Maybe it isn't. But I guess the gist of the story is, just because the Egyptians have strange gods and Isis and this was already the fall from perfection. They had already really removed themselves from the Hurrians by the time they were doing this. And likewise, my people that came down, from the steppes of Russia, and the Germans, you're back, we're back. It's crazy. Okay, so you shouldn't be doing this, and you really need to rethink what you're saying. Take a good look at some of these other very same pictures. See? They probably were looking at us. They had prophets who were seeing us. I don't know what this is about. I've seen this one for Jesus coming up. Oh, I mean, this one here for Jesus. I've seen, actually, when I taught, one year when I taught, I did a section on world culture, and I dealt with the creation stories all around the world, and I went into the alien sightings all around the world. So we looked at that, and I let them know that it's all these things, but they have them, and there's Chinese art and there's Indian art. It's all there, right? This is really ancient. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of people could believe in Jesus, because this is on, this is off. Let me see if I can get myself on. I can't. So that's a reason why a lot of people believed in Jesus, or a lot of people believe that there could be an immaculate conception, because my goodness, we can do it ourselves. Anyway, this is just the gist of what I wanted to discuss this evening. It's time to really look at the Sumerian culture, just as we have to look at so many other things, and understand that this is propaganda, buffoonery. There's a few elements of telling you the truth, but when they're saying that these beings came down and they lived, they reigned for 14,000 years, I don't know. We're not seeing evidence of this in other places, and we've done a lot of archaeology. There's awful lot of other artwork that is older than the Sumerians, and it's not reflecting the narrative that the Sumerians are discussing. Yeah. But, as I said, there is a cross-cultural discussion, forever generational, of the Watchers, the Star Brothers, and, as I said, some of them are malevolent, as well as beings we can't see. So, with that in mind, okay? Thank you.